So it's every parent's worst nightmare. Their kid's gonna get in with the wrong crowd. Tonight, I expose the crowd that got me into some of the craziest stuff I ever did. And it's not the jocks, it's not the stoners, it's not those metalhead kids that draw little skulls and sit behind the gym and smoke cigarettes. And it's not those cowboys either. Tonight, I expose the Baptists. All right, so this story goes back to the early 90s. I just finished high school and I had signed a letter of intent to go play football at Hardin-Simmons University out in Abilene, Texas. It's a small Baptist school. A lot of people go there to like pre-seminary before they go off to become preachers. It's a very religious school, and it's got a deep Baptist history. And, I was going out there by myself. I didn't really know anybody, and of course I wondered, who am I going to hang out with? What's the social scene going to be like? And of course I figured it would be the football players. Now, my background, I went to a very, very small high school, less than 100 people in the entire high school, so I knew everybody. And you kind of have two routes you can go with that. If you want to hang out with people who are just like you're going to have about 3 friends. So, I didn't keep myself exclusive. I hung out with all kinds of different people. Some groups of people that were just absolute natural enemies. I had friends that were jock football players. I had friends that were, kind of your metalhead kids, and that. And those people don't like each other, but I always like those metalhead kids because they always introduced me to all the good music. So, everybody else, I didn't care. If I liked somebody, I liked them. I didn't care what they were into. And so I had a lot of different interests and things like that. So I go out to college and we check in early because I'm on the football team. We've got like 2 days. And so for the first week or two, I'm only around football players. And I get into the locker room, and I'm around all these hardcore jocks, and these guys are from like Houston and Dallas and San Antonio and these big cities where they're jocks. They've only hung out with jocks, and plus, like, some of these guys, these upperclassmen, some of these guys are like 5th-year seniors. They're like 21, 22 years old, and I'm like a few months removed from high school. As I spent, I think it was my first day there, I just had this sudden feeling, this thing just washed over me as I was kind of watching everybody around me, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not a jock. I'd never really thought about it, but like, these were like guys that like scream while they're lifting weights and then like throw the bar down and then like high five, and then they want to listen to hip hop and go out to dance clubs and maybe get in a fight and all this stuff. And I realized really quickly, like, there's probably some cool guys here, but like overall, just this general vibe, I don't think I really fit into this crowd. So I figured that my social scene is gonna have to be more civilian in nature, like people I meet in the dorm. And of course, I've got a roommate. I haven't met him. I know his name. His name was Chad. I knew where he was from, and I'm just like, oh please, I hope I have a cool roommate. So after a week or two, he shows up. And I met him, and he was there. He was also a freshman. He was there to play basketball. And I was like, thank God, this guy's really cool. And I was really excited because he was like really mild-mannered and quiet. But he was very nice. And like, we went to orientation together. We would go to the cafeteria together, help each other find our classes. And it was really cool to have him. And so that was really cool. And I was like, all right, this is going to be a cool situation. I'm going to hang out with Chad, and the things were looking up. And, I'd go down into the kind of common area in the dorm, and it's kind of a mixed bag of people down there. And, being that my roommate was pretty quiet, and I was a little kind of didn't know exactly how to act. We just kind of hung out in the corner for a little bit, and it was really cool for a couple of weeks, until it wasn't. So one day Chad says, hey, I've got this friend, Bryce, and he goes to Angelo State, but he's going to come visit for the weekend. Is that cool with you? He'll just crash on the floor. I was like, yeah, no problem. And So didn't think much of it, and so this guy shows up, and he was also real kind of quiet and mild mannered, but the entire dynamic changed as soon as he got there because um, they had an identical personality, like, and it was so strange because when they would talk to each other, they would just kind of mumble, and they could understand each other. And it kind of reminded me if I ever like walked by my parents' bedroom when they were just laying in bed watching TV. You know, they'd been married for like decades, and they would just be kind of like, and you know, which makes sense for them because you know they've been married for since they were teenagers. And these two guys were like that, and and I'm not trying to insinuate anything, but I mean, I've actually can say for sure I've never had a friendship as close as those two guys had, and so I was definitely odd man out. I didn't care, I was just like, I just kind of went off and did my own thing, and they would just stay in the dorm room and play video games and hang out together, and then they'd just tell me, hey, we're gonna go out to eat. They didn't invite me. I'm like, oh, okay. So the weekend goes by, and then it's like Wednesday and he's still there, and then it's like the next weekend and he's still there. He's now been there over a week, and then Chad pulls me aside and he's like, hey, so Bryce, he's actually going to transfer here. And I was like, oh, really? I was wondering, because he's got to be missing class. He's like, yeah, he's going to be transferring here next week. It's like, cool. And he's like, so, and I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh, you want me to move out? You want me to find another roommate so you guys can move in together? And I'm like, and so I was kind of pissed, but at the same time, I didn't feel like I could say no, because it's like if I say no, they're both going to be hanging out there all the time, and they're just going to be mad at me the whole time. And it was a difficult situation to be put in. But I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll take what's behind door number 2. So, hey, I found one cool roommate. Maybe I'll find a second one. And so I go and talk to the RA, and he's like, oh, okay, you're going to be moving in with this guy, Mike. And I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, yeah. So Mike's been living in a room by himself, like pretty much all last year. So he hasn't had a roommate. And I think he's been pretty happy about that. But I'm sure he'll be fine. Go talk to him. And so I went and knocked on the door, and he opened the door, and I'm kind of standing there with like a suitcase, and he's like, oh. And I'm like, oh boy. And basically from the first day, he told me he doesn't like freshmen, he doesn't like football players, and he hates guitar. So I'm like, okay, this is gonna suck. And he was like a older guy. He was like a junior or senior. He seemed like a good dude, but I figured out immediately he's not somebody I was going to be hanging out with. So now I'm kind of back to square one. I'm basically in prison without a gang. And so I go down to the common area, and I'm just kind of sitting there by myself, like, okay, cool, how do I make friends? Everybody's already kind of paired up and hanging out and already seems to know each other. And we're now like 3 or 4 weeks into school, and I'm just like, I have no friends. So finally, I started talking to some guys there that seemed pretty cool, and I kind of misidentified them at first. I kind of thought that they were band students, was my guess, because they were pretty cool, a little bit more intellectual, definitely more intellectual than you would get from the jock crowd. They seem very motivated, very well spoken, and it took me a little while to figure out. There's like, oh, these are church kids. Like these are guys that are here to be preachers. But they were nice, and other than the lack of profanity, they didn't seem really any different than anybody else. So I was like, all right, well, I'll hang out with these guys for a little bit. So one thing that was interesting is these guys would kind of disappear at night a lot. So they would kind of disappear for the night, sometimes wouldn't come back till the next day. A lot of times they were staying up all night. They were going and doing something. I wasn't part of it at first. And then one night, kind of their ringleader pulled me aside and was like, hey, this upperclassman, Aaron's going to come by in a little bit, and he's going to take us out for kind of a rite of passage that's been going around here for a long time called the Atlas Experience. And you want to go with us? And I'm like, well, what's the Atlas Experience? And he's like, well, honestly, I don't know, but it's something they've been doing here for like a really long time. And we go out somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And Aaron's going to be our guide. Somebody took him when he was a freshman. Now he's like a senior. And he's a good dude. This guy over here knows him from his church back home. It's definitely on the up and up. It's going to be a cool thing. I've been hearing about this for years, so I'm really excited. Do you want to go? And so a bunch of red flags started going up with me because this sounded a lot like a snipe hunt. If you're not familiar, basically this is I hate to give this away for anybody who doesn't know, but sorry. Number one, there's no Santa Claus. Number two, this is the snipe hunt. You get someone who is usually not from Texas, like from up north or something, who doesn't know the gag. And you tell them about this animal called a snipe that's out in the woods, and you tell them we're going to go catch one. And you make up all these things about what kind of teeth it has and what kind of fur. And I was always surprised that people bought into it. But they were always like, oh, really? Oh, cool. What do you do? Like, well, you take this burlap sack and we go out here and we catch it. And I don't know. People always bought into it. Anytime that I was with somebody who tried this, whoever it was always like, all right, let's go. And basically you get out in the middle of the woods, middle of nowhere, and get a little bit separated from them, and then you run back to the truck and you leave them out there, and they have to find their way back, and it's a prank. And this sounded very snipe hunty to me. So I asked him, I was like, are you guys pranking me? Because, what are we doing, And he was like, no. He's like, honestly, he's like, I swear that if you're being pranked, we're being pranked, because I've been told about this for years and I'm really excited about it. But I just don't know what it is. And, I'm kind of looking around the dorm, and it's real dead there, and everybody's sitting around watching big screen TV, and I'm like, oh, all right, let's go. Let's do it. So I get in the back of a truck and we ride for what seemed like I'd say 45 minutes to an hour. And first we're on an interstate, and then we're on some kind of back highway, and then we're like on dirt roads, and we're going through just way out in the woods. And we got to where I hadn't seen any houses or lights for a while. And then somebody like knocks on the window. I'm in the back of the truck, and they're like, this is the place. And so we pull over and kind of hide the truck behind some trees. So, and I'd hung out with a lot of crowds that did some pretty shady stuff over the years. I knew we were up to no good, but I didn't know what we were doing. So I think we had 2 carloads of people. We pull over, we hide the cars, we get out. And I look, and there's this gigantic fence. And it's like one of those fences you would have for like exotic livestock, where it's like 8 feet tall. But it was really old, rusted fence. It hadn't been painted over or taken care of at all. And we're just walking along this fence line. And I think maybe one car drove by, and we had to like hide in the ditch. And so obviously we're somewhere where we're not supposed to be. And then we get to this gate, and I was pretty shocked, because I look up and there's a sign, and it says federal government property, something about property of the U.S. military. Trespassers will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And then there was something about, that deadly force was authorized. And I'm like, oh my God. And so this is the point where if I'm with any of my, friends that I knew were bad news, this would be where I'd be like, guys, I'm out. But there was kind of a sneaky backdoor thing to this, because being that it was of the church kids, I was like, how bad could it be? This couldn't be that crazy. Let's do it. So there were, I believe there were 6 of us, and it was 5 guys and 1 girl. And I only say this because it's important to the story, but the girl, she was rather large. I would say 200 to 225 pounds. Did not seem particularly athletic. And so I just keep that in mind for the story. Just good to know. So they were like, as soon as they saw the sign that said that they're, there's the deadly force sign, they're like, all right, let's go. And everybody starts jumping the fence. So I kind of wondered for a second if this girl, her name was something like Tabitha, so I'll just call her Tabitha. If she was going to have trouble getting over the fence. And she didn't. She was able to get over it. So, and I hopped the fence, and now we're on this federal property, and we're going without flashlights. There's enough moonlight where we could see where we were going. And we walk and walk and walk through this grass. And there's just no hint of a road or anything. We are just in a field. And then we get up to, suddenly there's a couple of like kind of metal structures, looked really, really old as far as I could tell. It's pretty dark. And there's this gigantic concrete slab that was a perfect circle. And it was like 200 feet across. And it was like, it almost looked like one of those crop circles in size. And we walk to the middle of it, and there's this hatch that goes underground. And so the elder statesman here, this guy Aaron, he turns around and he turns a flashlight on and puts it under his chin, kind of like you're telling a ghost story. And he's like, "Welcome to the Atlas." And it was real intense. And like a real official thing. I felt like it was like some kind of frat thing or something. And he's like, "We're about to enter the first phase of the Atlas experience. That is the ladder gauntlet. So let's go." And he opens up this hatch and he shines a light down, and I just see this kind of abyss. But as he shined the light a little bit more, I could see it was like a 30-foot drop off. And then at the bottom of it was this pool of water that was just green, just stagnant, horrible water that just looked like you would just get some kind of disease just from touching it. And just rusted metal. I could see just little pieces of things, but it's just, we just got one of those kind of big flashlights to see with, and I could see down there. And he's like, so he gives instructions and says, "Okay, there's a ladder right here, and you're going to climb down the ladder, but you can only go like 5 steps. And then you're going to have to reach over and grab another ladder if you can reach it and swing over." And he's like, "And if you're too short, if you can't reach it, you're going to have to jump over to the other ladder and then climb all the way down." And I'm looking down at that water and at the length of the fall, and I'm thinking, if that water's less than 4 feet deep, so if I fall, I'm gonna get seriously hurt. And plus, with all this like jagged metal sticking around everywhere, if some of that's under there, that could be the end. I mean, you could like a fall of that distance. So I gotta make sure. So at this point, back to Tabitha, I don't want to do this, and I'm thinking that the athletic nature of this, she's probably gonna have to hang back. And I've already got my contingency plan of, oh man, I better hang back here with Tabitha because I'm scared. Like, I don't want to do this. And though I kind of do, but it made me nervous. And, these guys just immediately were like, "All right, let's go." And I mean, they were just gung ho about this, and they climbed down the ladder. And then one of them was short, and he had to just completely jump like some kind of Tom Cruise move. And he climbs down the ladder, and I could kind of hear the ladder kind of go gung, 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 like that when they would jump on it. Because I mean, this stuff looked old. Like, this is really, really old rusted metal. And then it gets down to where it's just me and Tabitha, and I'm like, okay, this is where I get out of it. And she's like, "Okay, I'm next." And I'm like, yikes. And she climbs down, and she was pretty tall too, and she reached over and got on that ladder. No problem. So now my excuse is out the window. And one thing that made me really nervous was when she got on that ladder, you could hear it just like gong, gong, gong. Like it was really buckling under her weight. And guess what? I came here to play football, and I've been lifting weights and eating for about a year and a half trying to put on weight, and I weigh more than she does. So I'm like, okay, I hope this ladder doesn't break. So I got on the ladder, I reached over, I swung over, and I made it down to ground level, and I completed the ladder gauntlet. So now we are inside of this gigantic metal tube. It's a perfect circle, and it's like 10 feet, and there's graffiti everywhere, there's beer bottles, so you could see that people have gone down there. Some people know where this is, which actually kind of made it a little bit scarier, because it's like, oh, I hope nobody else is down here. That'd be really creepy. And so I kind of think that this is the attraction, is we're going to walk around in this metal tube. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. Don't know why they call it the Atlas experience, but hey, it's, cool. We're walking through a metal tube, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. And then Aaron just kind of has that flashlight. Now like 3 or 4 flashlights are on now that we're underground. He just kind of holds it up, and he's like, you haven't seen anything yet. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we walk down this thing for somewhere between like 50 and 100 feet. And when we get to the end of it, there's this hatch we have to walk through. And when we walk through the hatch, we step on this kind of metal grated floor. And I couldn't tell what was underneath. And one of the guys got his flashlight and kind of flashed around a little bit, and I couldn't see anything. It was just this abyss of like, I can't see. And so about that time, Aaron says, okay, everybody point your flashlight straight across. And everybody points their flashlights. I didn't have one. And it was enough light where we could see what we are in. And it is this metal cylinder that is unbelievably huge. I would say that it's probably 100 feet across this thing, and it drops down like probably 150 feet, and at the bottom of it is just this lake of this nasty green water, and there's a circular stairway that goes all the way around it down to the bottom. And you can see it continues to go into the water. So that water's not supposed to be there. And I could not believe what I'm looking at. Like, this was insane that this exists underground and it was completely hidden. And I'm just like, oh my God, what is this place? And all these other guys are just like, whoa. And, we're like freaking out, but we don't know what it is. And so this is one of the most surreal things. And you have to also keep in mind, these guys are all going to school to be preachers. So they're very like well-trained in public speaking. They're like orators, they know how to speak. So if they wanted to make like a speech or say something really official, they're really good at it. You ever go to church, there's nobody up there that's scared to speak in front of people. And so about that time, that Aaron guy turns around and he's like, all right, I'm going to explain this to you. And the only way that I could do this properly is, instead of me repeating from the best of my memory what he said, I'm going to show you how it sounded to me, which maybe isn't as close to reality as what it actually was, but this is what I heard.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a place that was never meant to be seen again. We're standing at the edge of an Atlas missile silo, conceived in 1957, when the Cold War hummed beneath everyday life. By 1965, it was already obsolete, left behind not by peace, but by faster rockets and colder logic. And yet this place endures, a cathedral of concrete, steel, and unrealized possibility. Once, in this chamber, an Atlas intercontinental ballistic missile stood nearly 80 feet tall, fueled by liquid oxygen and kerosene. Guided by gyroscopes and human nerve, it could rise from this vault in seconds, arc across continents, and deliver a warhead measured in megatons. Its mission was a contradiction. Built to threaten unimaginable power so that power would never have to awaken. These blast doors, these rusted platforms, the echoes in the air, they were part of a machine built with terrifying precision. A launch crew lived down here, sealed away, training for a moment they prayed would never come. And the moment never did. So the silo went quiet. The world moved forward, but this place remained, a time capsule of fear, faith in technology, and the fragile hope that restraint could hold history together. Tonight, we don't awaken the missile that once stood here. We awaken the story of what humanity was willing to build in order to keep its own future alive. Welcome to the Atlas.
Yeah, so I'm inside a missile silo from the Cold War era, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And I'm just looking around, and they're flashing lights around. I just can't believe all this stuff. And he said, Aaron was like, okay, well, now let's go ahead and go down. And I'm like, I thought we were kind of done, you know. And no, their plan is to go as far as that stairway will go down. And I'm looking around, and this thing is rickety, really rickety. And it's just kind of that rusted metal kind of mesh where you can see straight down through it. And so we start walking, and as we're walking, there's certain sections of it where the whole thing is like moving, and we're all on it. And then he's like, okay, this one up here is real flimsy, so let's go on it one at a time. And I'm like, we're gonna die. And then we start to get to sections of it where entire steps are missing, where they have just rotted and fallen into the water, which of course at some point they were still there and just fell. So why wouldn't that happen while we're stepping on it? So I'm fully expecting one of us to fall through this thing. So as we go, we reach one section where we actually had to get a running start and jump across. And, you know, at some point, you know, I was very scared, but at the same time, I was so like over scared for so long that I just kind of was like, all right, what's next? And we kept going, and we went all the way down as far as it could. And, yeah, there were entire sections of this that had fallen into that water. And then as we're on the way back up, I never have been able to confirm this by looking at pictures of these silos, but apparently the water that was in there was because there was these 4 like coolant like water tanks that were at the top of this thing, and a couple of them had burst and like ruptured and poured just ungodly amounts of water into this thing, because I think it was like half full of water. That water could have easily been 50 feet deep. And so, you know, we're messing around in there, and, you know, of course, I'm wondering, is one of these just going to burst while we're in there? I'm sure, hey, it had been there, you know, 30 years without bursting, so the chances are relatively low. But of course, you know, noise waves, people rattling around, maybe, you never know. So yeah, that was pretty insane. And we got back up to the top, and he gave us another little speech. You know, I don't remember much about it. I just remember there was another speech about, you know, that we had completed the what was it, the Axis experience, and, you know, to pass it on, you know, when we're seniors to the freshmen that come in and stuff like that. So yeah, it was pretty crazy. And we got back to the dorm at like, I don't know, 4 or 5 in the morning. I was like, these guys are nuts. And, you know, that was just the start of it. So, you know, I don't have any stories that are as interesting as the missile silo, but that was along the lines of what these guys did. You know, we went to some power plant from the 1920s that had been shut down. It was always some just terrifying place that just the safety was not there, you know. we went through this old power plant, and it was real creepy. We went through some old fort that was from the 1800s, that was like from Wild West era. And we're always going on all these adventures, and I realized these these Baptist kids, they were like elite trespassers. Like that, I guess there isn't a Ten Commandment about thou shalt not, I don't know, go to creepy old places. But some of these, for me, I never liked that kind of stuff, because it was fine if it was kind of low risk of getting caught. But when I saw a place that's like, okay, it's a federal offense, and we could shoot you, that's where I'm kind of like, okay, do I really want to do this? But for the missile silo thing, I'm glad I did. Like, I've been interested in that ever since. I've seen since then, a lot of those missile silos have been purchased, and people have turned them into Airbnbs. They've turned them into, one of them's a scuba diving academy, where you go diving down there. So I guess those things are around Air Force bases. And yeah, I mean, you can't do anything with it. So a lot of people have purchased those and made better use of it. But overall, I enjoyed hanging out with those guys. I think that they had a lot of creativity because they didn't drink. I think that when I look back at high school parties and stuff like that, there would be places to party that were just a road, and people would go hang out and just stand there and stand around with a beer, and just like, oh, how's it going? Huh? But alcohol was kind of the feature of the party, and I feel like the church kids learn to be creative, because if you get a bunch of sober people and you go to a road and you just stand there, you're just standing there. And I saw it bleed over into a lot of things, like what one of the guys was going to go on a date, and it was his first date with a girl, and he told her to dress up really nice, and they dressed up really nice, and they went to like a Mercedes dealership, and this guy had like $105 in his bank account, and they pretended to be really interested in a Mercedes, and he like borrowed somebody that had a pretty nice car, and totally had this guy convinced that they were interested in Mercedes, and they like went around and they test drove all these cars, and had this guy, sucking up to him, and went through all the stuff. So they always had a lot of creativity in the stuff they did. And I totally eventually started hanging out with football players more, and kind of blew them off, and kind of wish I didn't. I imagine a lot of them are probably preachers somewhere now, and they, and because they all were very smart, very, very good in school, and Hardin Simmons is a great school for that kind of thing. So yeah, I don't remember any of their names, but yeah, I mean, they were a real lifeline to me socially when I didn't really have any friends at first. So yeah, that's on me for not keeping those friendships. But anyway, that's my story.